Okay. So welcome everybody. Welcome to Creating Healthy Boundaries, an introduction to. So we're not going to cover the entire vast topic and everything that goes into this topic today, but we are going to cover the fundamentals, the bits that I want you to take away today that are going to start to make an impact in everyday life. And I'm presuming you're here because there is something about this topic, something about this particular situation that is like a thorn in your side. It's annoying, it doesn't go away. Maybe there's always progress to be done when it comes to our relationships and feeling like we can say yes when we mean yes and no when we mean no, and working on feeling strong and feeling empowered in all of our relationships. So before we get into that, I just wanted to introduce myself. So hello, I'm Dawn, and I'm a relationship coach. I'm the founder of the Heartful Academy, which is what this video sits under, this information, which is a whole range of topics and experiences and information and tools that support you on your emotional and wellness journey to really embrace the essence of who you are. My background is that I did a degree in human development, and then I did 15 years corporate work in organizational development and training management and coaching, sales management, large-scale leadership development programs, as well as one-on-one coaching too. I am NLP certified, inner child work certified as well. And I'm an aroma point therapist, which means that I'm trained to use essential oils with acupuncture points to help us energetically, emotionally, physically feel better, stronger, healthier. And I use them in a really specific way. And I'll come on to that in a little bit when we talk about tools to be able to support ourselves energetically with our boundaries. Most of my areas of expertise are around creating clarity, and emotions can feel very clouded, very confusing and overwhelming. And most of my life has felt like that. So the reason I'm able to hold space in the way that I do with the clarity that I can is because I'm doing the work myself too. I've been on the journey, and I am on the journey of emotional, mental, spiritual clarity in order to hear my own intuition, my inner guidance, and embrace the essence of who I truly am. And I'm here as part of my purpose and my role on this earth at the moment in order to help you do the same thing. I work both one-on-one in coaching, but also with other people in organizations and well-being industries. And so there's a crossover between my human resource and organizational development practices, as well as the one-to-one coaching, which I absolutely adore. I work a lot with ancestral patterns, clearing ancestral patterns, heart wounds, mindset issues where we're looping with anxiety and overwhelm and fear. I have been known to call myself a shadow worker because I've worked a lot with fear and the dark night of the soul experiences. And just to be able to create wholehearted living from every aspect, from our relationship to our work, relationship to our loved ones, and primarily and most importantly, the relationship to ourselves. What I'd like you to do is put any questions that you've got, you can either put them in the chat, or if you're watching this at a later time, please feel free to send me a direct message or an email so that I can answer them. Once you've had some time to digest this information, I would be more than happy to connect with you. There is a workbook that goes along with this training. You will find that on the dawnlucht.com free resources. I will send those of you who are watching this as a recording, and those of you watching live, I will send that to you in an email. But if you're watching this again at a later date, then you can go onto my website under free resources, and the workbook for your boundaries, you will find that there. So here's a little summary of what boundaries are and can sound like. And I've written this down, so I'm going to read this to you. Boundaries are not disrespectful. They're not rude or selfish or alienating, as many of us believe. It's actually an act of self-love and helps you feel stronger and increase feelings of worthiness and love for yourself. What do you think about that? That's pretty cool, isn't it? Most of us, if not all of us, have issues, wonky beliefs about ourselves, that we're not worthy of love or attention, that our opinions aren't worthy, that we're not worthy of the big dreams and desires and experiences that we want to live in this life. And they come out with, how do we hold ourselves in relationship to other people and for ourselves? How do we hold and protect the essence of who we are and our hearts? How do we nurture that and look after that? Because as empaths and sensitives and people who are starting to expand and explore what it means to be a spiritual being having a human experience at this time, we are energetically attached to all sorts of things. It's difficult to feel, to learn where I start and where the other person starts and the crossover that happens between that. But through this practice that I'm going to be sharing with you this morning, you will be able to 100% start your journey on being able to really feel you, where you start and where you end, what you want, what you don't want, and then putting that into practice. And it's extremely powerful. So there is, I'm just looking at the comments that are coming up as I'm reading through this. It's so true, but so hard to believe that in the moment when we want to say no and mean no. So a lot of that means that we need to find the peace within that stillness, that still point where when we look externally, it feels really on edge and loud, and we're interacting with everybody all of the time. And like I said, where do you start? When does the other person start and stop? It can feel like a lot. And when we cultivate a practice of energetic boundaries and stillness, and I'll explain more about that in a minute, it can be really profound in learning how we want to show up, what we want to say and how we want to say it, and then delivering that in a way that feels respectful to ourselves and honoring our own inner desires. So one of my favorite people who writes about boundaries is Brené Brown, and she talks about it in the simplest of ways, which is boundaries are what is okay and what is not okay. And here's the bit that is tricky for many of us. It is, boundaries are what's okay and not okay for you. And that's the piece where we really can come undone, making the assessment and then not self-doubting or looping or overanalyzing or going into an anxious spiral to second guess ourselves, to gaslight our needs, to put all of that into turmoil. But just simply say, this is what I want, and this is what I don't want, and this is how I'm going to show up. So by doing the practices that we're going to talk about in a bit, that is going to be really such an important part of creating healthy boundaries, is figuring out, what do you want and what don't you want? How do you want to be treated? How do you want to not be treated? How do you want people to think when they're in your space? Are you allowing them to just come into your house and sit wherever they want and do whatever they want and use your stuff in whatever way they want? And maybe the answer is yes, and that feels like nourishing and homely and wonderful. And maybe it doesn't. And that for you is a moment where you would say, this doesn't feel good. And so there's two ways to create boundaries. The first is knowing yourself, knowing what you want and what you don't want. And the second is responding to external situations and experiences and feeling in the body how you want to respond, feeling what that feels like in your body. And I'm going to go on to that a little bit more in a minute. So I want to describe 4 different steps of about boundaries, and this is something that is really important for putting them in place. Everyday boundaries starts with these 4 steps, which is 1, an assessment of your own desires, needs, wants, and expectations. So what is it that you want? Your assessment. Number 2, learning to listen to your inner guidance. Do I want to do this? Don't I want to do this? And feel the impulse from the messages that come when the external situation happens, and your insides will naturally respond one way or another way, or unsure. And that's okay too. So those are normally the 3 different ways that we respond to external stimuli. And then what do you do with that information? Do you act on it? So point 3 is acting on it. Do you have an external situation that shows up in your life? It feels bad. You want to say no, but you say yes because you don't want to upset the other person. In that moment, you are teaching yourself that you don't matter. You are violating your own inner messages, your own safety mechanisms. The trust that you want to build with yourself starts to get eroded. And so later on down the line, when you're trying to make a decision, you're like, I can't make decisions for myself because I don't know how to trust myself. I don't know how to tune in to me and hear what I need to hear because I don't believe I'm going to act on it. But by acting on it, step 3, by acting on it, each time that you do is so incredibly powerful for your sense of confidence, your sense of self-worth, and trusting yourself. If you're somebody who struggles with making decisions, guaranteed it comes down to step 3. Can you act on the messages that come up inside of you and follow them through? If not, it's likely that this is an area where you need some work. Because if you notice yourself outsourcing decisions to other people, that's a red flag. That's a red flag that somebody else is living your life for you, you know? And believe me, I've been there, so I get it. There is no judgment here at all, ever, whatsoever. But there is a desire for you to expand. There is a desire for you to evolve and grow and learn that these wonky coping mechanisms that you created through a survival mechanism as a child are no longer valid, and they can be upgraded. And when they start to feel ridiculously uncomfortable, that's a really good time to look within and get some help and create different coping strategies. So, and then number 4 is what people come to me and they say, this is the most difficult part of all of it. And that is rumbling with the discomfort of upsetting somebody, or rumbling with the discomfort of feeling guilty about saying something that upsets the other person. Normally, when we're creating healthy boundaries, the thing that stops us from doing it is not feeling comfortable with the discomfort that comes within us to say, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't want to do that. So if we make somebody else feel uncomfortable, it makes us feel uncomfortable. And we don't want that feeling. We are not comfortable. As a generalization, we are not comfortable with our own feelings. We don't like them. We avoid them. We numb them out. Anything that comes inside of us, we're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. And so you numb it out, you push it away, you push it down, or you find different coping strategies in order to avoid that discomfort. And one of them is going, okay, you can have whatever you want because I don't feel comfortable saying no, and then rumbling with the guilt that comes up. Again, no judgment. That is just what happens. I've done it a million times. And it's also the reason, one of the reasons, sorry, that I was a match to a domestically violent relationship, because I did not advocate for my inner guidance, and I did not advocate for my needs, and I definitely did not want to upset the other person. And when you're dating a narcissist, their reactions are so extreme that there's no space for your emotions. And instead of leaving, I stayed and made myself small. That's a conversation I have with my son a lot, because he went through a stage of having some issues at school. And I said, don't make yourself small, honey. Just because somebody is being mean to you or rude or bullying or trying to bully you doesn't mean that you have to shrink. That's their issue. You be you. Take up space. Open up your chest. Bring your shoulders back. Stand up tall. Take a big, deep breath. You don't have to be confrontational, but certainly take up your space. Don't make yourself small. And the outcome is increased safety. You feel safer in your body. A lot of people have such great anxiety because they don't feel safe in their bodies. They don't believe they can trust their own ability to act on the issues or the things that come up for them, or advocate for their needs. And so they start to feel anxious, and therefore you're looking for ways to calm the anxiety, rather than knowing that at your core, you are an incredibly powerful being, but you learned some wonky coping mechanisms, which are totally understandable along the way. And here we are in a place that feels not good. But the good news is there are things that we can do now to bring ourselves out of this and create different behavioral patterns, which is where liberation and freedom comes from. Being able to have choice. Okay, I know that this doesn't feel good, so I'm going to choose this instead. And I don't know what this looks like yet. I don't know where this is going, but this doesn't work anymore. So I'm going to try this. And I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to ask for help, because having somebody by my side is going to be so much easier and so much less confusing than if I just sit here repeating the same patterns that cause me suffering and pain over and over. And that's what having poor boundaries does. It creates suffering and pain. And if we can eliminate that from our lives, that would be just the greatest gift we can give ourselves. So if you could take a moment, close your eyes, take a long, big, deep breath in from your stomach, and breathe out as a deep exhale. And then imagine there are beautiful, strong roots coming out from underneath you and reaching into the soil, past the mycelium, past the crystals, the water, the tree roots, and spreading all the way out. And so you start to feel grounded. And the more you feel connected to your experience of these roots in the earth, the more you are allowing Mother Earth to come in to support you, to find peace and calm and centering in this moment. Just taking a couple of long, big, deep breaths in and out. And the reason the stillness is important is because it's in the stillness, in this moment of calm, that you can check in with yourself and say, what is it I want here? What is it I need here? And what am I going to do about it? And it's from this place that you can reach out to the person in question, to the experience, the thing that's happening, and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And the more you practice this, the more you're going to be able to do it in the middle of the experience as well. Even if it means you saying, hang on a second, this isn't working for me. I need some time out. And if the other person is like, no, 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 don't go, which happens a lot because people don't like the pause. But if you take a minute, gather yourself, find that inner stillness, you will hear what is true for you, and you will be able to act on it accordingly. Okay. So one of the things that is really key here is starting to ask the questions where you take responsibility for your own outcomes, for your own actions. And if you're a recovering people pleaser, if you're somebody who has had unhealthy relationships with other people, or you find step 4, that rumbling with the discomfort, difficult, taking responsibility for your behavior is going to take practice, and that's okay. But there's no change without a little bit of discomfort and a little bit of growth. And maybe other people are not going to get very happy about it, but that's okay too. People don't like change on the whole. But you're going to love the outcome of this when you keep implementing it. So the questions I want you to ask yourself is, so step 1 is about awareness. We want to bring awareness to our situation. What are the pitfalls? Where do I keep getting caught out? What is happening that in the situations that are creating problems for me? Now, this takes a little bit of effort. It takes some time. So I encourage you to write down with these questions what's coming up for you, and really set some time aside to go there, because what you will find is this is the key to understanding where you get caught out. And that's great, because once you know where you get caught out, what the situations that cause you the most trouble are, you're aware of them, you're ready for them, you're anticipating them, and then you can put in place your plan of action. Okay, so questions like, what thoughts or stories come up for me when I think about putting in place a boundary? So it could be, I start to feel really guilty that I'm going to upset the other person. Okay, we're just bringing awareness to that as an experience. You're saying to yourself, I have this reaction when I think about putting in boundaries. And then you can start to identify, is that true? Is that helping me? What happens if I do rumble with them? What happens? What if I do go there and say the thing? And what happens if I don't say the thing? Okay, so just take it slowly. Take it slowly with these questions. And you'll find that they really are so enlightening and bring so much awareness. And when you have awareness, you have choice. And choice is liberation and freedom. Okay. Another question is, like I already mentioned, is how do I feel about this? And what do I really want here? Do I want to keep playing out this pattern? Or do I want something different? Do I want to leave the house today? Or do I want to stay inside? Do I want to go to this party with this person? Or do I want to stay at home? Or do I want to have this new job? Do I want to keep doing these things in my job? Yes or no? And then act on them. So there's 2 other parts of the awareness that I want to talk about. The first is, there are a lot of controlling people in this world, a lot. And currently, it's way more than I'd like, and probably you'd like, but there are a lot of them. And we now have a choice in order to say, I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to do this with you. This isn't okay. And the way to identify if somebody is a controlling person or a narcissist or a manipulator or just generally makes you feel bad is by asking these following questions, which is, how do I feel when I'm around you? Is it good? Do you drain me? Do I feel drained around you? Do you push all of my buttons on purpose or seemingly on purpose? Do I lose my center, my ability to stay regulated? Or do you keep pushing me outside my comfort zone to a place where I don't understand? I get confused and overwhelmed. And you will start to feel this in your body. So in your body, it also includes your head. So sometimes you might feel like it feels whirly, really, really whirly. Sometimes it might feel that your jaw constricts or your stomach feels on edge because there's adrenaline pumping around your body, or your shoulders tighten up as you go into sort of a fight or flight mode and you're ready to kind of come in and hold yourself so that you can keep yourself safe. That's kind of drawing in. When I used to teach yoga, I used to see lots of people coming in like this, and they often felt very fearful. But when you open up the chest and the shoulders, it's a completely different experience. Your body will show up with like a dashboard in a car with a set of warning lights. And the more you listen, the more you'll start to see that there is a red light, an amber light, and a green light. And depending on what that message is, that's how you learn to take action. Just check in with me. Let me know if this is making sense. If you've got any questions that are coming up, if this is resonating. What's interesting about this kind of experience is it really makes us become aware of ourselves, and awareness is key to so much choice of choosing whether we stay as we are or grow. And for many of us who are on this path right now, to expand our mindsets, to inspire ourselves and others, to break ancestral patterns, to stop the cycles of abuse, to create different relationships with people from our hearts rather than from our wounds, it starts with awareness. There is no way around that. You have to bring your attention to this awareness piece of, how am I feeling? How am I relating to these people? And do I keep giving my power away by violating my own boundaries? Good, I'm glad it's resonating. All right, so let's start off with step 2, which is about practicing. Every single behavior that you ever have, ever, now, today, is because you've practiced it. You are only a total sum of the thoughts you've thought, the feelings you felt, and the behaviors that you've created. And that's the loop, right? So if all you are, which isn't all you are, but if, let's say, all you are is a set of neural pathways that have grooved themselves into comfort, then creating any type of circuit breaker to create a new type of behavior takes practice. And you're going to slip up. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be full of trial and error. And it should be. That is how learning happens. That is how we create something different for ourselves, is practice. So don't shy away from these difficult situations anymore. Challenge yourself, show up in a different way. Say to myself, okay, that didn't go well, but what did I learn? But I did manage to show up and do something different, which is definitely empowering, even if it wasn't completely how you wanted to. But every single step, every single circuit breaker, every single different choice that you make that creates a different outcome, that's to be celebrated. Okay. So practice, practice, practice. Compounding is key. You got to keep practicing, otherwise you'll forget. It's like the train tracks. If you don't keep choosing the new one, the old one that's really comfortable will just take over, and it will be so familiar, so comforting that it will happen unconsciously. Okay? So when we practice, when you've got a tricky situation coming up, you want to really aim to discharge the emotion first. Now, if you've seen any of my other work, which is about the 4 ways to love your emotions workbook, which is also on my website, you will know that the first 2 steps of that 4-step process are critical also in this process. And the first step is discharge your emotions. If you're really activated and triggered, don't go there. Don't do it, because it never, ever ends well. You can try, but you'll know what I mean. You will know what I mean, that every time you go into a situation fully triggered, it doesn't end well. And it just triggers the other person as well if they're not already triggered. So discharge your emotion. If you want more information about that, then you can download my other workbook in the free resources. It's already up there. Step 2 is learning to pause. So you've discharged the emotion and you've learned to pause. Pause means choice. Pause means, okay, I've discharged that intense emotion. Now I'm like, what am I going to do? What do I want to do? And it's in that pause that you can connect in to what you want, what you don't want, what you do want, where you want to go, how you want to do it, how you don't want to do it. All of those questions. It only happens in the pause. If you're behaving from a from an activated place, you're going to find that the emotional charge is so much that it colors a healthy outcome. And that emotional charge wants to be right, ultimately, and it wants the other person to be wrong. It also, most of the time, wants the other person to meet your needs at the expense of their own. So instead of having a win-win situation, you end up having somebody who is wanting to have their needs met over the other person, and vice versa if you're both triggered, which is a recipe for disaster. So whenever we do any of the communication workshops for relationships, that's like number 1. Are you triggered? Don't go there. Just don't do it. So that's number 1. Start regulated. Start with emotional discharge, or have your emotions discharged. Step 2, use a calm voice. Calm but firm. Do you know what I mean? You know, when you're trying to appease somebody, it can feel a little bit wishy-washy. It can be like, oh, I don't know, whatever you want. But what happens if you stand in front of them and go, that doesn't work for me. Nice broad shoulders again. Lift your chin up. Take a breath and go, no, that doesn't work for me. Or yes, I would prefer that. How does that feel in your body? You can do that standing up, lying down, sitting down, doesn't matter. It's all about how you hold yourself in that moment. Even if you're like, oh, I want to curl up into a small ball and run away, don't do it. Don't do it. So that's point 2 and point 3. Point 4 is you're allowed to bring notes. If there's an important conversation between you and your partner, you and somebody at work, or a parent or a child, you can bring notes. Write it down. Some of us don't like to be put on the spot. And if we do, it all goes out of our heads. It's like, poof, it was all there a minute ago. I've been thinking about it all night. And now look, nothing. Absolutely blank head. So write it down. Write down your notes. Bring them with you. Step 5. If the other person is trying to draw you into an argument, and you can learn to feel that energetic hook, they're hooking you in. And this is especially true for narcissists. They want everything on their terms. So they're going to hook you in and pull you into their drama, their conversation, their thought forms. And you're going to be, no, 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 that's not how I view it. They don't care. They don't care. And so if you start to feel that dynamic happening, call time out. Call time out. And if it's just with your partner and there's no narcissism going on, lay a ground rule before you start talking to each other. Just generally, that says, we now have an agreement that if we're triggered, it's only going to escalate. So one of us has to call time out, and you have to make a pact that both of you leave it alone. You know, practice. It's not as easy as it sounds, believe me, but the impact that it has is incredible. Step 6. If you notice you're defending yourself or feeling unregulated, also you can learn to say, time out, I'm going. Okay. And then step 7, which, like I said at the beginning, is one of the most challenging experiences that people talk to me about, rumbling with the discomfort. The thing is, when you make somebody else uncomfortable by sharing what's important to you, and they react really poorly, that is a them issue 9 times out of 10, unless you're being really, really, really unreasonable, which I'm going to assume for the purposes of this conversation today that that's not true. They're just not happy about the change. And normally we have the most problem with people who have narcissistic tendencies, or are so, not even narcissist, but so black and white thinking, dogmatic, fixed in their mindset that they believe they're right and you're wrong. And so trying to get somebody else to agree with you, that's difficult. So all you need to do is take care of you, take care of your needs, your desires, your life, your heart. Take care of your heart. And learn that through practice, you will see that it's not going to kill you. And that's unfortunately what we often think, is that these experiences, these emotional experiences, are so intense that we're going to drown. And what I know about emotions is that they are wavy, and they will peak, and it will feel the most uncomfortable ever, and you'll want to crawl out of your skin, or you'll want to do something to make it go away, or you're trying to appease the other person to make the wave dissipate quickly. But if you make the choice to go up with the emotion and allow it space, it will naturally come back down. And you can help that by regulating your breathing. And then you will find that not only did you not give away your power and end up doing something that you absolutely didn't want to do in the first place, but you start to feel stronger and more confident. Doesn't that sound good? Does sound good. Believe me, from somebody who's done a whole load of people pleasing my entire life, when I started saying no to the things I didn't want to do, a massive game changer. And the people that I now hang around with that are close to me in my life, that matter, are out of this world different. And also the same, like these experiences, these tests from the universe, because the universe wants you to be happy, wants you to be a sovereign being, a empowered, self-loving, connected and strong being. That's what the universe wants for you. And so it will send tests for you to grow in any way that it can. And one of those, when you're self-employed, is through your business. So it was to send people who will test your boundaries for you. And that's annoying because it feels like you're getting it on all sides. But it has a benevolent gift. It just feels annoying along the way. Okay. And then lastly, step 3. Step 3 is, how do we reinforce our boundaries? What tools can we practically use every single day in order to feel stronger and better? And here are the main ones that I use and have used myself as I was growing my boundaries and feeling stronger within myself. So the first is emotionally learn to discharge your emotion and learn to pause. If you do that, I guarantee you will feel already a million times stronger. If you just focus on doing those 2 things, out those first 2 steps out of the 4 steps of loving your emotions, you will absolutely guaranteed be able to shift millions of interactions that you have this year. Okay. Step 2 is get support. Teamwork, baby. Let's do it together. You don't have to do this on your own. You can have somebody like me guide you, support you, be by your side, work together to help you compound the behaviors, to help you lovingly, nurturingly, and safely go there to the places that feel a little bit uncomfortable or a lot uncomfortable. And then number 3, this is, for me, this is one of the most important points, which is energetic boundary help. So I do the 12D shield, which is a reinforcement of our light body. And I've been doing that, I think, about 7 years now, and I do it morning and night. I do it when I get up, first thing before I get out of bed, and I also do it when I'm in bed, last thing before I go to sleep. So I am energetically reinforcing my boundary. And I've done a meditation for you that you can listen to on my podcast, which is number 56. And if you go to the workbook, you can have a look. It's written in there. There's a link directly to it, or you can check it out on the New Dawn podcast, number 56. And you can listen to it as many times as you need to. There's also using tea tree. So as an aroma point therapist, I absolutely love using essential oils. I use tea tree. This one's called Melaleuca. It's also another name for tea tree. This is an antiseptic, antiviral oil that works with wounds. So if you imagine that your aura, your light body, is a bit like Swiss cheese when it's not healthy, when your boundaries aren't good and strong and reinforced, right? So what you can do is use Melaleuca, which feels like a protective salve around your light body. And its spiritual consciousness of this is designed to heal. It's designed to reinforce. It's just like this gorgeous healing green hue that sits around your light body and reinforces the feelings of strength and feelings of empowerment. And what you can do is you just rub a little bit of it on your finger, find your spot, which is your crown here, which is called GV20, and with just a very light touch, right? No pressing, no indentation, just a light touch. You're going to put your finger on the crown of your head, hold it here with the contact, and close your eyes and imagine that you are being encased in Melaleuca, in tea tree, and sit there until you feel a shift, a movement, or a spontaneous sigh, or a release that happens that feels, yes, that feels complete. You can bring your hand into your lap and just sit inside what feels like almost like a cosmic egg of your light body with this energetic shield. And you don't have to have the oil. You can use that whenever you want, whatever you want. You can just call in the consciousness of this oil and use it in that way. Or if you are going to use it, make sure you really do get a high quality tea tree, because a lot of them don't have the right level of energetic vibration within it to help support you. It's made with like fillers and things like that, so the energy of the oil doesn't feel clean, and you want it to feel really, really clean so that it can support you. And for those of you who are energetically sensitive, you'll know what I mean. Do a test, play around with it and see what the difference is. And it will, yeah, it will show up. It will show you what feels good and what doesn't feel good. So that's it in a nutshell. That's the introduction to creating healthy boundaries. And I want you to practice this every single day, especially if this is one of your big burrito life themes and journeys that you're working on. Definitely start today. And if you need some support, do let me know. So have you got any questions? Anybody want to share anything or have anything that you want to ask? You can either pop it in the chat now, or if you want to email me separately, you're more than welcome to. All right, I think that might be a no. Good, that's a lot of information. Please take care of yourself, look after yourself. If you've got anything that comes up for you, please reach out. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching and have a wonderful day.